Three big reasons why everybody thinks the Democrats are going to win the House in 2026. And I have five big reasons why the Republicans are both going to retain the House and also increase their majority. So let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Honor and Knowledge channel. This is my weekly update for the 2026 elections. As you recall, I split my videos into two, one for the 2026 elections, one for my Hungry Strike for America, where I'm losing 50 pounds by the end of October of this year to support Speaker Johnson and President Trump to retain the House in the Republican hands. Why? That's just the way it is. So anyway, let's first talk about the three reasons why the Democrats and other people, Karl Rove included, think that the House is going to go over to the Democrats this year. Number one, history. We all hear about how history is on the side of the Democrats. Well, that's a hope, isn't it? That's a hope on their part. But that is one. Number two is they have two issues that the Democrats are going to be using in their run to win the House. Number one is impeach Trump. Impeach Trump, impeach Trump, impeach Trump. Impeach Trump again. And the other reason is they're anti-ICE, anti-illegal alien deportations. That's what they're going to be stressing. Let's impeach Trump. Let's stop the deportations. Those are two big single issues that they're going to be using in their election campaigns. And then the third thing, something I've talked about in the past and as written in the book called Dirty Little Secrets, The Persistence of Corruption in American Politics, put out in 1996, the Democrats are very good at manipulating, cheating, stealing elections. In fact, a bunch of years ago, there was a news article that was talking about this book, and it was entitled How to Steal an Election. So those are the reasons for the Democrats thinking that they could win. Number one is history. Number two, the two issues of impeach Trump and stopping deportations. And number three is, well, what they do. In fact, in the Jim Jordan-led hearings on Jack Smith, there was a Republican congressman that put into the congressional record a problem of over 300,000 votes being accepted by the Fulton County Board, in spite of the fact that they weren't legitimately processed. So more about the Fulton County in the future, because if you remember, there's a case in front of the Georgia Supreme Court. Hopefully they'll decide sooner rather than later. But the subject is that the Republican Party is suing the Board of Commissioners in Fulton County, Georgia, on the fact that the Fulton County Commissioners, even though it's in violation of Georgia state law, have refused to seat on the Board of Elections for Fulton County a couple of Republican candidates that have been submitted by the Republican Party. I'll say that again. They are violating state law because they don't want the Republicans, who are really good at monitoring and ensuring that theft of an election doesn't occur, they're refusing to put them onto the board. A lot more to follow on this in the future. Now then, let's go on to the things I think are going to help the Republicans to win the elections in 2026 to not only maintain the House, but increase the size of their majority. Number one, as I said in a video a few days ago, the Senate is going to be held by the Republicans. Well, the Senate elections are statewide. And I believe that there's going to be strong support for a bunch of Republican senators to take the seats of the incumbents or of the Democrats who are retiring. I believe it could be as high as 57 total senators in the Senate that are Republican after the 2026 elections. I think that in those states, there's going to be more of an energy for the voters to not only vote Republican for the senators, but while they're in the ballot process, they'll go ahead and vote for the Republicans. So that's number one. Number two is there is a tremendous amount of anxiety in our country developing over the past many years over the radical left becoming more and more radical left. The Democrat Party becoming more and more left-oriented, and as I put it, anti-USA. Some Democrats actively talk about that. Senator Fetterman is one. There is a lot of activity in the Democrat Party that more and more moderate Americans, as well as Republicans, are against. So with the Democrats becoming more left, and we see lots of flight from these blue states to red states, the red states are being provided with more income, more billionaires, more companies, like Wells Fargo is coming down to South Florida. Billionaires like the In-N-Out burger chain owner has moved to Tennessee. That's going to be leaving the states that they've left with less income. And with less income, they'll be able to provide fewer services to people that don't really deserve them. And the conservatives that remain in the states that are having lots of flight leaving them are going to be more and more concerned. They'll be going out to vote more and more. Also part of this, which is the left-leaning Democrats becoming more and more left, the whole issue of anti-ICE, anti-police, anti-deportations, most of Americans realize that illegal aliens need to be properly, humanely, and yet removed from our country. President Abraham Lincoln said, "You can fool some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time." And I believe that's what's going to be happening during this campaign season. More and more facts are coming out. More and more information will be developed and provided to the general American population that will show that the right thing to do is to get rid of illegal aliens. Yes, these shootings in Minneapolis are tragic and terrible, and nobody wants them. Well, I know that conservatives and Republicans don't want them, but it's almost like some of the Democrats may be looking for that chaos, maybe looking for those things to occur like that. You know, the Democrat Rahm Emanuel once said, and I might be paraphrasing, "Never let a crisis go to waste." That's what the Democrats are trying to do with these tragic killings. Most of the people in Minnesota, just take Minnesota for example. I believe most of the Minnesota people are against the things that are occurring by the Minnesota governor and Minneapolis mayor offices by not supporting the ICE agents. I lived up in Minnesota and worked up there for a year about 10 years ago. I know that a lot of them are wacky, but those are the ones in the St. Paul, Minneapolis area. Most of the people in Minnesota are hardworking people. You know, they understand the value of work. They also understand the value of the police and following the law. And also another part of the left-leaning Democrat reason for the Republicans to get more votes is one of the things that the Democrats are going to use. They're going to be campaigning on impeach, impeach, impeach. And you know what? A lot of us don't want that to happen again. We don't want to spend any more time in our country wasting our time in Congress having impeachment discussions. Such a total waste. We don't need that. We don't want that. It's the wrong thing to do, but that's what the Democrats will be doing because they're already trying it even when they're in the minority. The third reason why the Republicans are going to retain control of the House is the fact that the economy is doing so well now and is just going to keep doing better and better and better. Oh, by the way, on the tariff issue, if the Supreme Court rules against President Trump on the use of the tariffs, here's why I think that won't be an issue. Yes, President Trump will be ticked off, but remember who his Secretary of the Treasury is. Scott Bessent is such a fantastic, intelligent, capable person. You know darn well he already has a plan B and a plan C, maybe more, on what to do. I don't think that the Supreme Court result will cause any immediate issue for President Trump and the economy because of our Treasury Secretary. He's damn good. And speaking of the Supreme Court, the fourth reason is also the Supreme Court, having nothing to do with tariffs, but having to do with racial gerrymandering and the unconstitutional aspects of the voting rights laws. Just to recap, there is a case called Louisiana versus Calais that has been presented to the Supreme Court, actually 2 years ago, and then in October of this last year. They need to rule on that by June. They might be ruling on it, hopefully, before that. That has a significant impact on Democrat gerrymandered districts in Republican states. For example, Louisiana, which is bringing this to the Supreme Court, has 2 racially gerrymandered districts that are specifically for black voters. That is believed to be unconstitutional and has only been upheld in the past because of the activist judges misinterpreting the Constitution, just like Roe v. Wade. If the Supreme Court rules the way that I think they will, there will be a minimum of 5 more seats going to Republicans and could be as many as 9 total more seats going to Republicans. So I've calculated out, based upon the states that will be able to be doing redistricting, how many seats they currently have that have been gerrymandered to help the Democrats. It's a minimum of 5. By the way, I don't even include Texas doing any additional redistricting, but there are 5 more seats, and at best for the Republicans, 9 more seats because of the Supreme Court ruling. That's 9 more seats in favor of the Republicans. Oh, by the way, South Carolina is not going to be redistricting, even though they have a seat that's been racially gerrymandered also. Congressman Clyburn is in that district. The 5th reason is a combination of President Trump Speaker Johnson, and my hungry strike for America. Yes, a lot of good people are going to be working to get the election for the Republicans. President Trump has already discussed, as supported by his chief of staff, who says that he's going to be going out on the campaign trail to support congressional elections and probably senatorial elections. I'm losing 50 pounds for some mythical, magical reason that's going to help Speaker Johnson maintain control of Congress. So this last one, fifth area, the fifth reason for the Republicans to keep control is the team of President Trump, Speaker Johnson, and me on my successful conclusion of the hungry strike for America. Yep, I have the sign behind me. I've lost a total of 24 pounds, which is why there are 24 stars. Who could possibly argue against my logical belief? If I lose 50 pounds, we'll keep the House. So let's actually talk about how many seats I think the Republicans could gain in the House. Well, if everything went the way that I want it to go, it'd be about 13 additional seats without the redistricting caused by the Supreme Court decision. If we cut that 13 number down to, say, a pretty conservative 5, to say there's 8 House districts that I think the Republicans can win, but they don't. So that leaves 5. That increases our majority by 5. And then if we get the Supreme Court ruling, a minimum of 5, and a maximum of 9 additional seats. So that's 5 plus 5 is 10, 5 plus 9 is 14. So it's additional seats of 10 to 14. Now, I obviously goes against what Carville said last week, where he said that the Democrats are going to win an additional 25 seats at least, and up to 45 seats. You know, he also said that the Senate was going to go over to the Democrats, which was really absolutely crazy. I think the last time Carville said anything that was accurate was back when he was working with Clinton during the Clinton years. You know, it's the economy, stupid. Remember that quote? It's the economy, stupid. Well, guess what? I support that statement. I think most of us do. And guess what? It's the economy, stupid is also going to help the Republicans get the House. As the months go on, we'll actually know more and more. For example, there's a redistricting effort by the New York Democrats, supported by Democrat judges, to redistrict a Republican congresswoman out of her spot. Representative Nicole Malliotakis' re-election bid could take a beating, and Democrats just okayed congressional redistricting of the city's only GOP district, which would also let Dems avoid a bruising primary. Well, the Republicans have said they're going to take that all the way up to the Supreme Court to protect the district the way that it is right now. More to follow on that one. But that's the kind of thing we don't know what's going to be happening. By the way, my discussion with regard to how many seats are going to be going to the Republicans includes losing several Republican seats because of redistricting efforts in Virginia and Maryland, as well as Indiana, which is Republican, not redistricting, which really ticked off President Trump also. So it's pretty accurate, I believe. Now we need to talk about Alaska and Arizona. Why? As you recall, every time I lose a pound in my hungry strike for America journey, I go ahead and I color in one state. I lost 2 pounds last week, so 2 states. And I do them in the order that they voted for President Trump in the last elections. Alaska was number 23 percentile-wise, voting for President Trump. Arizona was number 24. So let's talk about Alaska. 2 senators, 1 congressman. Congressman, brand new, has already done a lot of good stuff for Alaska. I think he's going to win re-election with no big issues. However, Alaska always seems to be right on the edge until the election occurs, and then it swings to the Republicans. So I think we can't take this one for granted. He needs our help. Down in Arizona, it's an interesting state. Now, in the state legislature, both the Senate and the legislature are controlled by the Republicans. They're the majority. However, the governor, both senators, Democrats. Go figure. I think this has a lot to do with what I was saying before about how the United States is slowly going towards the conservative side. Just as Abraham Lincoln said, you can't fool all the people all the time. In Arizona, they've got New Mexico, which is a lot more Democrat on one side, and then California on the other side. I think Arizona has been the recipient of a lot of people coming from California who are escaping, well, as the movie said, Escape from Los Angeles. Yeah, that was a sequel to the one on Escape from New York City. So anyway, a lot more people have been coming into Arizona who I think will be voting because they don't want to repeat in Arizona what happened in California. Now, interestingly, Arizona has a pretty high illegal alien population. I think number 2 from a percentile-wise in the country. It has 8% of its population are illegal aliens. But you know what? I think all the other reasons are going to overcome that. And I believe Arizona is going to be continuing to slide towards the Republicans. They obviously can use our assistance. And they have a senator, Senator Mark Kelly, who unfortunately is not up for re-election until 2028. He's somebody that I think would be really great to get out of the Senate. I think the Republicans can gain a lot by helping out the Arizona congressional candidates for re-election or initial election this fall. Well, everybody, we've gone over the House, the reasons why I think the Democrats believe they're going to win, the reasons why I think the Republicans are actually going to win, and the numbers. Not bad, actually. Conservatively, I think the result of all that will be at least 5 more House seats for the Republicans to increase the majority. And with the Supreme Court, I believe, deciding that the racial gerrymandering process required by the Voting Rights Act is wrong, unconstitutional, then that gives a bunch of states the right to go ahead and redistrict and go ahead and get rid of the racially gerrymandered districts. And I'd like to remind everybody that in a lot of Democrat states, such as Massachusetts, for example, there's a good amount of Republicans, but there are no Republican House districts. So why is it that race is allowed to be used to carve out special districts for certain demographics? That is unconstitutional, and it is not the American way. One person, one vote, and that vote should mean the same no matter what your background is. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for your time. If you want to subscribe, that's fantastic, but if you don't, your time was a precious honor that you gave me. God bless you. God bless President Trump and his administration, and God bless the United States of America. See you in a few days. Maybe I'll lose another pound and I'll be halfway through having lost 25 pounds. Wouldn't that be a fine thing for you to see? So join me again. And thank you for watching the Honor and Knowledge channel.